At the Festival of Speed this year, we saw a glimpse at what Caterham might be preparing us for within the next 2 or 3 years. We had a preview at what might become of the Caterham 7 if and when it's converted to electric power, and we also had our first look at this, the Project V, an alternative look at what this little company might decide to do as the motoring world goes electric. Caterham for a long time has been all about the 7. In terms of road cars, the instantly recognisable shape of the 7 is the only thing to roll out of the factory since the mid-90s. This represents quite the paradigm shift. And it's no coincidence that we're stood here today. 2023 marks Caterham's 50th anniversary, and along with plans to move into a stunning new headquarters in Dartford, it's also made some big commitments towards a sustainable future. It's cars like this, the Project V, which are going to shape exactly what that future looks like. There's been a nagging concern with the dawn of the EV that small dynamic sports cars like the Caterham 7 might well be falling by the wayside, but what Caterham has done here is reassure people like myself and its customers that perhaps the sports car isn't dead just yet. And for me, looking at this, you can count me convinced, this looks absolutely stunning. It's the kind of thing, even when it's not moving, I just want to get in and drive it. And this is not just an empty promise. The Project V is a very real proposition. Caterham has already hinted that this car, or something like it, could well be introduced to the market as soon as 2025 or 26, and that's really not that far away. The design itself has been engineered for more than just style. Every element has been honed to be as light as possible. Everything is geared towards that Caterham staple, driver engagement. It's small, it's 2,255mm long. In all, it weighs just 1,190 kilos, which is roughly the same as a Mazda MX-5 RF, and that's not even an EV. So what about performance? Well, it's an electric car. It's got an electric motor delivering 272 horsepower to the rear wheels. Its 0 to 60 time is going to be under 4.5 seconds with a top speed of 143 miles an hour. It's going to put it somewhere in the region, if we're talking about Caterham 7, somewhere in the kind of 360 to 420 range in terms of that outright straight line speed. So it's going to be pretty nippy then, but generally speaking, the thrill of driving a Caterham is not so much about the straight lines, more about what it does through the corners. And I think we can be fairly sure that whatever this Project V turns into, it's going to be utterly welded to your favourite country road. It's got fully adjustable double wishbone suspension and disc brakes on all 4 corners, and it's got power steering, which is an absolute first for any Caterham. And if you think that's blasphemous, wait till you have a look in here. Oh, let's just climb inside and have a look at this incredible space. It's got material on the dashboard and on the seats. They reckon when this car, if it makes production, this will be Alcantara. We've got a leather steering wheel with digital displays. Now, I called this car a paradigm shift earlier. Alongside the digital dash, there's also a touchscreen infotainment system complete with Apple CarPlay. There's even air conditioning. There's 3 more here for your time. You've got your settings for sport, sprint and normal. You notice there's no comfort mode in this car. This is still very Caterham. But perhaps the coolest aspect of this car is that they've designed the batteries so that the space underneath the seats is empty. So what they've basically done is lower the seats down to give you that proper sporting Caterham feel, which, looking out of the windscreen, you've got good visibility, but you feel very hunkered down. It feels like a sports car, which is exactly what a Caterham should feel like. Now, this is of course an EV, so we do need to mention the R word. Energy is stored in a 55 kilowatt hour battery that is projected to deliver somewhere in the region of 250 miles of range. Charging with a 150 kilowatt rapid charger should see a 20 to 80% charge take little more than a quarter of an hour. We've got these lovely leather door pulls. The door itself is beautifully finished. There's speakers here for some kind of sound system. I'm not sure what that could be doing in a Caterham, but it's modern, it's well built, it's precise. And even just the seats, they're electrically adjustable, they're carbon backed, proper sporty bucket seats. You get nice and deep down into them, and they're upholstered in this really cool kind of Alcantara design. The star, the 3-point star in there looks fantastic. This is a genuine step up from anything Caterham has produced before. And then, if we look back here, there's a third seat. 3 seats in a Caterham. You get an extra passenger if you want it, although I can't imagine there's an awful lot of space in there for anyone taller than 3 or 4 feet, but the option's there, and actually, I think it adds a little bit of extra something to this quite remarkable car. So I'm joined now by Anthony Jannarelly, the man behind the design of this car. Now, this is obviously very different to what we're used to from Caterham, so why don't you just talk us through your thoughts behind this very pretty looking thing?
Yeah, I think everyone was surprised at the beginning by the brief, given to me and then to Caterham. And the idea was really to create this small GT coupe in some sort. And it's not something where Caterham was expected to do, but actually it makes sense because for me the principle of design is always to apply the core philosophy of a brand and on whatever product they want to release, basically. So on Caterham, we know that they stand for simplicity, lightness, and fun to drive.
Let's have a little mosey on round to the front, and this is again very different to what we're used to. Talk us through this.
Obviously, I tried to create some kind of link with the 7, which is the iconic vehicle from Caterham. And even if the 7 has a very different purpose, it's always nice to give some kind of connection. And the point here was the starting point was you take the volume of the 7, and then because it has some open wheels, you want to cover them, and suddenly you just cover them with a very soft and clean shape. And again, everything is very neutral and clean and organic. And you could see actually like the surface almost of the 7 in the mouth, in this area. So imagine you start from the Caterham 7, you start to cover the wheels, and then you keep covering the cabin, and you end up with this very logical and clean volume.
Yeah, it is very obvious, isn't it? The nose is very much still Caterham. You can see the kind of the oval grille in there. The identity is still there, isn't it?
And everything serves a purpose. For instance, we have this grille and we have a radiator because the batteries are immersed into a liquid to be cooled.
We'll move around to the rear end, and again, very distinct from what you were used to from Caterham. Tell us about this.
Yeah, actually, at the rear, I think it's even more retro, and there is this link with Lotus Elan in some sort. Caterham has always been linked to Lotus in some sort, and the chairman of VT Holdings, who owns Caterham, basically, is a big fan of the Lotus Elan. So we tried just to get some hint at this car, and actually for me it was a very useful point. And if you think of the first generation of Elan, the outline of the rear light was actually exactly the one you see now. The only thing is that now you can use LED and you can be very thin, so there's a bit of a fun in that part. And again, like the retro feel, I would say is that we have a proper bumper. And I like the reaction of the people because they also check that and say, oh, finally, a car with a real bumper like before, And it's, again, very, let's say, there's a lot of sensuality in the car. That's why I wanted to make sure we would get. And that's a cool thing we can extract from the past in some sort.
Which is your favorite part of this car? What are you most proud of?
I think it's the front end with the little blade on the side, because I think it can become a proper styling cue from Caterham. It's always, when you're a designer, you always want to create a family feeling. So in case they develop a new car, I think a few styling cues like the front end and this type of rear signature should be reused.
All in there, and I'd say this is a quite exciting piece of kit. I will say, however, that it's projected to cost somewhere in the region, if, and fingers crossed, when the Project V goes in production, it's going to cost somewhere in the region of £80,000, but I've got to say, it feels worth it.